GojiFan93 here, and welcome to another interview at GFest23 2016. I am here with John Druni, also known as Goji73. Thank you for taking the time.
Not a problem.
Awesome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Alright, so I got 10 questions for you, and the first question I asked all the people that I interview, and is, what is your favorite Godzilla movie?
My favorite one, now do you mean altogether or like from a particular era?
Altogether. What, like the number one Godzilla movie?
Number one has to be Godzilla vs. Megalon. Hence my title of Goji73.
Right, and why?
Probably because when I was a child, it was the one I watched the most next to, well, I watched a lot when I was a kid, but
right.
that as well as Revenge, King Kong, Monster Zero, and The Thing. Those are the ones I watched the most as a child and remember the most. But Megalon stuck with me the most because I actually liked watching the heroic Godzilla in the past. So that's the reason why that was my favorite.
Alright. So what got you into collecting figures?
Well, it was watching a bunch of my friends actually collecting some stuff. Like, when it first started, it was because there was like no place to buy Godzilla stuff from. It mostly depended on if like Trendmasters made a figure of it, or if eBay had a figure of a particular monster when I found out that existed. And for a while I took a little break and it only centered on Bandai Creations when that came out.
Yep.
But when I met people like Ultraman Kronos or Deadzilla, and I found out how well they were known for their collection and their videos, that's pretty much where my kaiju boom sort of went into effect. So it was here and there when I was younger, and 2009 or 8 is when it like exploded into what it is now.
Cool. And so what inspired you to create your channel?
Well, while getting to know Ultraman Kronos and Deadzilla on the old forum known as Kaiju Collector, seeing Kyle make his videos and Frank even make his own, I thought, hey, I used to do stop motion when I was very little. Why don't I do the same thing with my own? Like, let's see how well I can do nowadays with the technology that I have now. And that's when Godzilla 73 was born. Then I got booted by Toho. Then Gojira73 rules came in, booted by Toho again. And then Goji73 came in, and the rest is history. And that's when Godzilla and His Amazing Friends was born.
Nice. All right. So what gave you the motivation to review figures?
The motivation was pretty much like advice given to my friends, like how to break it down, what do people like about it, what will they focus on the most. And because a lot of them back then, they were pretty, I don't mean to offend anybody when I say this, but they were kind of sort of generic, like, they were more, I won't say generic because it's kind of rude, but it was more informative than entertaining.
Oh, okay.
And when I started doing my reviews, like the one that ultimately I think broke the chain was my review on the Bullmark Bolton from Ultraman, and that sort of cemented my style for like both informative and entertaining reviews as well.
All right. Next question. So where did the idea for Godzilla and His Amazing Friends come from? I think I might have this, but...
Well, it comes from a few things. Obviously, the title is a big play on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Yes, that. Let's just push the elephant out of the room there.
Right.
That's where the title comes from, and it's pretty much my take on how a heroic Godzilla would be viewed from my perspective. Like, kind of like the best way to view it is kind of like the Land Before Time sequels without the breaking into song randomly. But the idea of it came from, like, again, watching Frank and Kyle do their thing, and because I noticed everybody and their grandmothers nowadays focuses on the grim, dark era of Godzilla, like the atomic bombs, the Heisei era and all that. I kind of sort of felt like the fandom was sort of empty without any sort of show of goodness, because show is fun, Godzilla was a good guy, and you know, why don't I take a stab at this? See if people really like the show of films, like, or is it always just going to be this grim dark era we're always going to live in? So that's sort of like why I made a more lighter and softer series centered around Godzilla. So that comes from.
So how long does it take to create one episode?
When it first started off, it took about 2 to 3 months, but as time eventually came on, it eventually grew into like 6 months to about 1 year. That's because of how much work I wanted to go into stylizing characters to do the action that the normal figures that portray them can't do, as well as just to put the entire project together in a advanced video editing software. So I'd say about nowadays 8 months to a year.
Oh, wow.
On average.
And so like what's the process of making like one episode? Like where do you start, like storyboards and writing the story first and then taking the pictures of each monster, or how does that go?
Pretty much what you said for the latter. It starts off with writing out the episode, like the actions that go on. Normally I would do storyboards and that'd be a great idea, but unfortunately it's too time consuming.
Yeah.
And that would only make the episode take longer to make. So I write it out, then I photo take it, then I edit each and every single photo in Photoshop, and then once all those are done, and by the way, the Photoshopping phase is one of the 4.
I believe it would.
And the 4th and final phase is the editing phase. That's when I put it together in Sony Vegas, for instance.
Nice.
Yep.
All right. Any plans on improving the series from here?
Well, as it currently stands, a lot of people seem to like my style, but lately with the introduction of character models in 3D editing software like Gary's Mod, Source Filmmaker, and Miku Miku Dance, MMD, I have been contemplating on possibly transitioning to one of those 2 or 3 styles for editing. Mostly Miku Miku Dance because it seems the simplest of the 3.
Yeah.
But it all depends on, because Season 2 is pretty much 90 or 80% written, it all depends on if the monsters that I have planned for Season 2 ever get made into a model for the program, and if anybody would be willing to make that for me, and I haven't been able to talk to anybody because a lot of people who make that, they don't take requests. So.
Yeah, there are a lot of...
As it stands, it's... Oh, do you want to say?
Oh, no, you're good.
No. But so as it stands, it's still in stop motion animation as of yet, but in the event that somebody can make 3D models of certain monsters, that'd be great, and it'd be all the more reason for me to make the transition in the future.
Would you be worried, that's kind of like a bonus question, would you be worried of like any backlash from people who would not like a transition?
Kind of, sort of, yes and no. No, because a lot of fans really like my fans really like Godzilla, and the last time I tried something new, they didn't take too kindly to it. Kaiju Shy Dub. And yes, because I know some of my closer friends kind of like my stop motion animation style, and I'm a little concerned that people will think I'm becoming cheap or selling out to the new 3D editing software.
That's the problem.
Yeah. So it's kind of sort of risky, but I think I'm willing to take it as long as the software that makes it is easy enough to understand.
Nice. All right.
But, oh, and one last thing, but I'll only make the software once I feel comfortable with it enough to actually work with it, because I don't want to get it and then suddenly start making it from scratch, because that's going to turn out really lousy, and I don't want to do that with what is pretty much my prime
series.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Cool. So any advice to young reviewers or any young stop motion animators that want to get into making films, or even like figure reviews, things like that?
Well, with a show of your own, the only advice I can give is to plan out your story in advance, see where you want to go with it, and make sure that you tidy up as much of it as you can, like story-wise, plot, character, how you want the audience to feel, that sort of thing, and then put it all together. And with reviews, kind of sort of the same thing. Break it down as much as you can, and then once you do, like on your own time, then put the review together. Like, it can be informative, it can be entertaining, it can be your own thing.
Yeah,
just as long as you analyze the situation first and then put it together. Once you feel like you're fully confident enough to do it.
Nice. So last question for you. Any future projects for your channel, or any future projects that might not even be Godzilla related?
Well, at this time, not really. Future projects, there is of course the dabbling in MMD. I definitely want to do that. It doesn't have to be related to Gina's Amazing Friends. Like it could be like another adaptation, like Who's Afraid of Godzilla, for instance. I could make another adaptation of that. Other content, I don't have anything at this time, or at least I don't that would make people flip their lids.
Right.
I know I am a fan of other shows, for instance, like Steven Universe, or even other franchises like Sonic, and we all know how people are with that.
Oh, yeah.
But at this time, for the foreseeable future, I'll still be sticking with Godzilla unless noted otherwise.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's it for the interview. Thank you, John, so much. It was awesome. Pleasure.
Not a problem.
And that's it, guys. So thank you so much for watching. Stay busy, fans.
You heard him.